Well, hello everybody, welcome back to episode 98 of my Let's Play. I have Tyranny, have you said the name? Okay, I'm going to chat with this guy here. So far he paid us basically not to kill him, so it's a technicality if he's actually in the old world or not, so I'm going to give him money, and we're talking to him now. Okay, was in charge, that is a bit unusual. Indeed, but Reef Talon is the most unusual beast. She is not like most beasts. Coughed nervously, shuffling slowly away from kill shadows. Smells just like every other human kills his shadow has ever met. Anyway, Reef Talon was able to organize the beasts and humans into effective patrols against the Bane. With her in charge of defense, casualties drop. No Bane ever slipped into the common area, and disputes between beasts all but disappeared. At a certain point, it seems foolish not to have her in charge. We've had a few beast men wander into our refugee, and I don't know how or why, but life here changes them. I don't know if it's the Bane, something in the water, something about the magic of this place. For a span of 2 living with us, most beastmen just seem to become a bit more civilized. Relax. Maybe speak to some of our beastmen. Perhaps you will agree. And more about the wage staff. He chuckles, his lips pressed together in a slight and knowing smile. Prickly old fella, Warstaff, one of the last tide casters in the tiers. I believe his eyes widened in sudden realization. His kind were enemies to Karas, true, but I'm certain he has no personal designs against the Overlord, Faithbinder. He's not one for pleasantries or charismatic, or of any sort, charisma. But he is a master of his craft. He was the first to treat the toxic waters in these old worlds, and to date is the only cure that works. The wound would be in bad shape without him. Maybe it's the water that's turning on and he's framing the beast woman. Tell me about Jess, boss. Oh crud, there's more there to read, wasn't there? Oops, oh well. Look for the broad-shouldered man with the booming voice. He's almost always talking out of his frustration on some poor rock, or taking out frustration on rock or boulder. Just there by his forge, he points northwest towards a plume of smoke rising above the surrounding walls. Jespos and his 2 apprentices arrived some time after Warstaff. I think we worried he'd be a true loyalist and demand we surrender to Karas. But he's taken a shine to this place and is trying to create his own little corner of terrorists. I think he likes this seclusion and being surrounded by a variety of rock types. He built most of the bridges you see here. Some, was that sirens to filter water? Sirens or something? He's a one-man work crew, and he knows it, unfortunately. He has more than a few supporters, particularly since he created those purifying aquillas. The water here causes illness, and without his help, most of us wouldn't have enough clean water to drink. Let's speak of all matters. Is there anything else we can help you with? What do you do here? What don't I do? Someone has to inventory the supplies, take Celsius, ledger trades. It's all pretty unexciting. I assure you, I happen to like playing steward. Balancing numbers is easy for me, and I have far more responsibilities than I ever did as a mere scribe at the Citadel. Aren't you a bit young for a sage? Where's your master? If you were a tenant sage, if I were a tenured sage, that may well be true, but I'm just an apprentice. Many in the guild scribe for decades before attaining rank. As the school is no more, I suppose I never officially be counted among the sages, but I am making my contribution to knowledge in my own ways. My master thinks similarly, though I think the loss of the school means more to her. I had a few years to know the other sages. She had a few decades. Where's your master? Master Limix is sadly not among us. She vanished into the low odds that one we knew about earlier, level some time ago. She wasn't herself. He furrows his brow, visibly distressed. Life here is rather complicated, and the old world's blessed us with numerous mysteries. One of those is certainly sleepless. Yeah, I think I've said that before. Basically, mad. What do you do as a town steward? It's not anything fascinating, really. I just help with all sorts of practical affairs that help keep the wound running, tracking inventory, coordinating supply runs, determining our resources, whatever that is, logging births and deaths, organising events, that sort of busy work. It's not internally demanding work, but I'm happy to do it. Questions about the wound and its history? The analysis and creation of historical documents was one of my chief areas of focus at the Citadel, and I've had enough time to acquire myself with the particulars of this place, so I suppose I'm the person to ask. That's why I'm asking you. What would you like to know? How did everyone get here? I assume it walked, but whatever. I'll ask it anyway. This place was discovered 3 years ago by braver and more adventurous souls than Masters Lux and I. We're relative newcomers, going on about a year at this point, when Karen smashed Rostrumvol's manor. His supporters fled into the cracked mountainside and discovered this place. At the time, life here with the Banes sounded better than life at war with their arrogance. From there, the settlement grew in spurts. We are far off the beaten path, so visitors are rare, but the few we gotten have often made this place home. Not every encounter with the outside has been positive. When some disfavoured found us, things got ugly fast, but the bloodshed was limited and the survivors joined us in the end, if a bit reluctantly. Do you know about this place? Remarkable place, is it not? He stretches his arms apart, looking around for emphasis. We've no idea how old this corner of the old world happens to be, but the tunnel leading into it came into being a few years ago. Count Fury was unleashed in a battle on the top side, and whatever powers he used split under the mountains and fractured these old walls. He points upward past the crashing waterfalls and towards the spole sky. The divided walls flare outward. A giant mast stretched towards the firmament, cracked the whole D-word old walls in half, and now sunlight and water are here for the first time since ever. Makes me wonder, there are other old walls like this that are hidden from view to those us just walking the surface. How do you survive this place? What do you eat? We get enough sunlight to cultivate crops on the upper levels. I was going to say garbage. It's cabbage, nash root, radishes, mushrooms. Even the biggest challenge here is drinking water despite appearances. He leans forward whilst speaking, his tone energetic. It's a rather interesting phenomenon, actually. Something in the old walls environment leaches into water and corrupts it, producing a small curious disease in the affliction. There's no fever, chills, bleeding, vomiting, or what have you, but you will waste away over time as if one were starving. Tidecasters, wagestaff devised a method to magically treat the water, rendering it safe to consume, and with cultivant properties for those already sick. This solution is a bit slow at making large amounts, but fortunately Jasper constructed some stone aquifers. Water poured into these aquifers will drain a few hours later and emerge purified. Between their combinations, we're able to make the wound a proper home, so long as the two keep their squabbling to a minimum. Did the Bane not threaten you? He nods, absently rubbing his dried ink between his fingers. Yes, of course, but we have a system for that. You've met our greeting party in the caves, I take it? And instantly, what happened to... He shakes his head, dismissing the thought. It doesn't matter. The point is that we have a conjuring of beast men with us, and they're adapted exceedingly well to old worlds and show little fear of the abominations. They've been perfectly eager to dig their claws into any that come our way. It's surprising that it even works, by the way, but who am I to argue? At any rate, they keep the entry point to the wound clear, and seems content to keep doing so. In fact, I dare say some of them have come to love hunting the Bane, or just have a death wish, and that's why they volunteer for patrol day after day. What do Warstaff and Jesper argue about? Few things that matter. I do not mean to belittle those men, but I often feel like they're both demanded exaltation and, more importantly, want whatever adoration someone else is getting. He clears his throat, turning red and with a smile. That through their magic they make life possible here, and we all look up to them. I think they both feel a genuine sense of duty to protect us all. Too bad they don't get along despite their shared goal. Talk to them directly and you will see what I mean. Keep in mind things weren't always like this. The beast woman, Reef Talon, had a way of keeping things civil, but since her disappearance, our grievances have re-emerged. So basically the one out there isn't Reef Talon then. Okay. Never matters. Very well, Fishbinder. You haven't done so yet. Please speak with... If you haven't done so yet, when have I done that? I've literally been told you since I've got here. You know, the conversation's been continuous, but you haven't done so. You can't talk to them. What did you suddenly, you know, go blank halfway through a conversation? Dumb me. You haven't done so yet. Please speak with Jesper Warstaff. The wound doesn't speak with a single voice. These two come the closest to such a thing. As you turn to leave, you see Lamptey lost in thought, rubbing his weather ink between his fingers and thumbs. Guess one of your old friends is here. Remain silent. So tell me more about this lonesome person. Come on, time to get moving. She's an old friend of mine. She's more an old friend, they're probably lovers or something. And by now you already detected the understatement in my voice, so ask your questions. An old love interest, I presume? Loaded free. You presume correctly, told you. We were deeply intimate for the better part of 15 years. Wow, the school gave up long ago trying to make rules against fraternization, and well, we took full advantage of living in the modern era of the school of ink and quill, when sages could do away with fugitive compulsive weather and the foolish attempt to curb the natural inclination of scholars to rot. Basically, they got rid of the rules that you don't do any hanky-panky. And they were doing stuff constantly. It was her magic I loved her most. She was gifted, truly gifted. She could achieve these little accents on her spells that none of us could replicate. At first I had nothing but envy and hate for her, but somewhere along the line it became adoration, and I just hoped to Karas that if I rubbed up against her enough, maybe some of her talent would rub off onto me. No such luck. What would you like to know? If you were so close, why didn't you flee the Citadel together? There was a time when we were inseparable. I learned much of my magic from her, and her from me. We are each other's mentor and student. It is a very special sort of bond. Is that basically, you know, when you play doctors and nurses? That's his version of it. Mentor and student. But it was a relationship that I fouled through my own convictions in the years before Karas' conquest. I urged our school to surrender, and urged is our understatement. Rapidly advocated would be a more apt description. Lester did not share my assessment of Karas or my opinions on what must be done. I was the dissenting minority, and most felt I was a traitor, Livingston included. I was about to back off from my belief that surrender was the right idea. Considering what came to pass, I feel justified in my stance. While I normally adore being right about things, in this particular case, my Tumcent smudgies maybe... What? Tumcent smudgies? Maybe isn't worth the friendship it cost me. Don't want someone else supposed to say Tumcent smudgies? You know what that means? Put in the comments, please. What do you make of her condition? Her condition! From the sound of it, she was afflicted with sleeplessness, and by all accounts, madness would naturally follow. But if she's down in the old worlds and enfeebled, she'd be easy prey for the bane. Assure you, whatever struck her, I won't let it happen to you. Heard of anything like this before? Do you think there's a way to save her? My mind leaps to the worst conclusions. That, like a severed arm, the damage is irreversible. Maybe if she got out of the old world's walls, maybe if she could be drugged into sleep, or I don't know. Why I keep speculating. So you two worked on the Chronicle together? Yes. Not yes, we. We are but two members of a team spanning generations, but yes, we both contributed to the Chronicles. Long bouts of fieldwork and longer stretches of authority. Our findings suited our temperaments. My colleagues insisted original research was the way to make a name for myself, but the accounting of everything is a cause greater than us all. Leslie saw the Chronicle as half recorded of things that were, and half record of how things ought to be. To her, each moment we recorded offers universal insight into how people will act in the future. I take the more modest stance that you can't stand in the same river twice, and the same general can't fight the same war twice. So history is of a limited predictive power. Forgive me, you didn't ask for the nuisance of our philosophical debates. What do you make of these chronicle fragments she tasks you to find? My heart stings every time I can safeguard a text against destruction. Still, there is something bothering me about these writings. Let's look around a bit more, shall we? Ask me again when I have a few pieces to compare. With that, finally finish the conversation with him, and we're going to end this episode. So please like, please subscribe, and please tune in next week. Bye for now. Have a great, amazing, wonderful, spectacular day, and share the video. Bye.